How you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for meeting with me.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. I represent the city of Rexford, and on behalf of the county commissioner, so.
Awesome. I represent Daye.
Okay, so the officer during the
He is
Smith
the
incident.
detective, right, who the case was assigned
Okay.
over to.
Alright, yeah. I figured we'd be meeting soon.
Yes.
Alright, so I realize you guys are kind of here to negotiate a settlement.
Right.
For this incident that happened.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the main criteria that you're trying to get solved?
Well, the thing is, my client, Mr. Daye, has been a detective and with the department actually for about 10 years. He was assigned this case, it was turned over to him by the chief of police,
Okay.
Mr. Harold Burns, and he was expressly told by the chief of police to solve this case as quickly as possible and at all costs. He did his due diligence. He interviewed the witness in this case, Miss Woods.
Okay.
She told him that she believed it was a Mr. Joey Smith who was involved in the incident. So again, my client, obtained a warrant for Mr. Joey Smith.
Okay.
And received this warrant from the magistrate in this case, and Magistrate Larson. And, after getting that warrant, they had done a computer printout of Joey Smith in the state, got the address for the Joey Smith who matched the scenario, ran a criminal record check. It came out to be a Joey Lee Smith. And my client, the issue here came down to my client ended up telling his assistant, Detective Payton, to enter Joey Lee Smith onto this hard copy of the computer printout.
So your client told his assistant, and the assistant's name is?
The assistant Detective Payton.
Payton, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And told Payton, hey, I want you to enter in Joey Lee Smith?
Right.
Okay. And
what happened was Ms. Payton entered in Joey Allen Smith. So instead of, entering in the Lee, she entered in the Allen, and I just, don't believe in this case that, there are any grounds for disciplining Daye. He ended up being suspended for a week without pay, and then for a few weeks without pay, and then on top of that, ended up being demoted back to a patrol officer. Again, we don't believe there were any grounds to begin with for this discipline, seeing as how the error was not his, but Ms. Payton's. And even if there were any grounds for disciplining my client, he was the victim of disparate treatment because, again, here it is, his assistant, who ended up being involved in this issue. She was not suspended at all. She had no consequences. Now, Ms. Payton being, Caucasian woman in this case, and my client being the only African-American detective, and only one of 4 African-American police officers in this entire department, we believe he's being targeted for disparate treatment, and we believe, there's a discrimination claim going on here. So,
Can we get that resolved?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, great. All right, so, now that we know your position, and let me just reiterate it back to you.
Sure.
Your position is that Officer Daye was wrongfully disciplined in this case, and primarily on the grounds of racial disparity. Okay, and so, all right, cool. Okay, let me just, so knowing your contention, let me just express our side and what we've gotten out of this case. We personally believe that, first and foremost, Mr. Joey Allen Smith, I believe his name is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Joey Allen Smith. He's going to have a damage claim against us. He was wrongfully arrested, for the city of Rexford, and all of this crap. And he is in a lot in the right. Like he did nothing wrong, and so there are damages that have been incurred for Mr. Joey Allen Smith. Just refer to him as Allen.
Right. It was very unfortunate.
Yeah, for Mr. Allen. So, as a result of the damages that have been incurred, the city has to place some precedent so things like this don't happen again, because it hurts the city that Mr. Allen is going to be able to sue us and poor Mr. Allen Smith, Joey Allen Smith, has to go through all of this. You know,
Right.
he's the primary person who got hurt here, we believe. So in order to go ahead and show the precedent that we're not gonna like let things like this happen again, we have to discipline someone.
Oh, we totally agree.
And the only two officers for the city of Rexford in the police department, like you said earlier, was your client, Officer Daye, who you said had been on the force for 10 years, and then his assistant, Peyton, Assistant Detective Peyton, who entered in the info.
Right.
So the first problem that we have with this is Officer Daye entered in, he did a random check of arrest reports for Joey Smith, and he found one entitled Joey Lee Smith.
Correct.
First off, he used a random entry that just happened to be similar to the name that he was searching for, and guessed that that person was in fact the culpable defendant, when clearly all he did was just get a name from a database, right?
Actually, he had gotten an address as well.
He did get an address?
And the address matched the Joey Lee Smith.
It did? Okay.
Right.
So Joey Lee,
That is how he was able, he pulled up his conviction history, and there had been charges of larceny before,
Okay,
and he was given that address.
okay,
I
so,
believe it was what was his address? 1211 Mineral Springs Drive in Rexford City.
do you mind if I take a look at that?
Sure. It was when he was interviewing the witness, Miss Woods. Miss Woods' employer told him that Joey Smith had worked only one night for the cleaning company some months ago, and she believed it was this Joey Smith who was involved. She gave him the address, which he, when he entered in the Joey Smith into the database, that address came up with the Joey Lee Smith. And it was also seen that there had been some larceny convictions.
Okay, so it matched, so Joey Lee Smith
Right.
matched, okay.
Right.
Alright, so,
There was definitely enough probable cause that it was the Joey Lee Smith, and that
Okay.
was what he had told his
okay,
assistant.
because the addresses match,
Correct.
okay. Alright, so, okay, so, continuing on. So now we have this Joey Lee Smith, who we have probable cause because we have addresses matching, a witness report of who she identified as the suspect, and she prior knowledge of where he lived, assuming that was the
Through the
same.
employer.
Yeah, through the employer, assuming that was the same person. So now we have Joey Lee Smith as a probable suspect, and your client, Officer Daye, like I said, who's been on the force for a decade now, gets his assistant to enter in this information, Joey Smith, and it is dispute. We talked to Peyton. Peyton says, I thought that it was in fact Joey Allen Smith. That there's some discrepancy as which name was actually told to the assistant. It is conceded that the assistant did enter in the wrong name, right? So Peyton was at fault there. But we're kind of under the belief that Officer Daye he was assigned this case for over 365 days, for I think 380 days. He was the only one tasked with finding this particular suspect and gathering information on the warrant, etc. His signature's on the warrant. We believe that he has a duty, just a general duty, to avoid negligence and to follow through in his police reports, seeing as he's the only officer in charge of this, to make sure his assistant types things in correctly, to avoid mistakes like this. So that is something that we definitely think is worth punishing, because he did not double check the entry. However, the contention from your side is that was because for racial means?
No. In regard to double checking, there's actually nothing in the Rexford City Police Department Officers Manual that expressly required Detective Daye to review the hard copy of the computer entry for accuracy. He had turned this over to his assistant, who he believed was more than competent. And, the issue isn't even whether or not she was in actuality at fault. We believe she was, but why were there no consequences to her at all? And it wasn't only my client was suspended without pay. He was both suspended without pay for a month, and was demoted. Why both? Why not suspend him for a month without pay or demote him. Why are you
Right,
gonna,
why do both?
right, and then no consequences at all from Ms. Payton, who was just, who we believe was actually at fault. I mean, that just seems extremely unfair.
Okay, great. All right, so we're definitely, we just kind of want to get some facts on the table from both sides, but we're definitely interested in settling.
Okay.
By all means. We do have a couple things that we'd like to kind of work out for us as well, you know. We are in a lot of liability to Joey Allen Smith, the chief of the police department, and I think the superior of your client has written an apology to Mr. Smith, saying sorry for all this that's happened. We formally request that you guys just write a simple letter apology to Mr. Smith as well, as an add-on to whatever settlement agreement that we may come to at this meeting.
Okay.
So, so if we could just get a letter to Mr. Smith, just because we are in a lot of liability.
Now, will Miss
Allen, yeah, not.
Now, will Miss Payton also be required to write a letter of apology?
I mean, we can definitely look into that. If that's something that you're interested in.
Sure. I would like to know a few things
Okay.
before we, start talking about negotiation, because I mean, I definitely know we want to reach a settlement also, but going to trial actually is a satisfactory outcome for our client. We believe, we would like to avoid the cost of going to trial, of course, but if our client is able to meet his burden in trial, I mean, he would be entitled to back pay, reinstatement to his former position, or front pay until he finds another job. He would have damages for emotional distress and medical expenses for such distress, and reasonable attorney's fees and litigation expenses. So we do believe our client has a very good probability if he were to go to trial. I just want to know, has the city been involved in any discrimination claims in the past?
Not to my knowledge, not to any information that I've done.
Okay.
I mean, I know that there was, the only thing that we are aware of, and it just happens is in connection with this incident, was, there was, I think, to the original fact pattern of this issue, there was a Mr. Max Stimson. I think he was injured in an arrest with a police officer, and I think he was a black male. That's the only incident that I know. However, that suspect is a fugitive at law right now, so we don't know where he is. So that would be the only thing that the city's got, and of course that's in connection with this case.
Right.
But yeah, other than that, no, we haven't had any prior racial issues. But okay, so one thing that's very concerning for you, or perhaps the main thing, is the disparity between the white assistant and the black detective.
Right. I mean, as it is, the department seems to have very limited diversity within its staff as well. Only 4 of its patrol officers are African American out of 40.
Out of
40 officers, and again, my client being the only African American detective, and he's been there for 10 years. And being the one targeted in the situation when it was clear that there was somebody else complicit, and not even an investigation was launched into, suspension or any kind of punishment in her case. It just seems extremely troublesome.
Okay. All right. We definitely have also at being representing the city, is the police department is kind of under our jurisdiction. So I know there's 2 routes we could go with this. Like you said, you feel confident at trial. We feel confident at trial as well, only because he was in the superior officer position. And that's an issue. But as far as selling goes, I realize that there are 2 options that could be pursued by your client, and that's either continuing with the Rexford Police Department, or we could pay comparable wages if he got a new job, if it's in the same type of position at a different department.
Okay.
So before we figure that out, are you interested? Which are you interested in staying with us?
I believe my client would possibly be interested in staying. I think again, his primary interests are clearing his name.
Clear his name.
You know, he wants his good name back, clearing his record, and getting money for, he's had to undergo some psychiatric counseling,
Okay.
he's developed depression as a result of that, and he really doesn't want that, you know, being spread in the media or anything like that, but.
Okay, so privacy is definitely an issue as well?
Yeah, I mean, he would like, again, just his reputation and his record and his good name. Those are the two things I think are of primary importance to him. I think if my client were to, you know, get the city to provide him with an outstanding letter of recommendation and clear his record and, you know, provide money for the counseling sessions that he's had to undergo, and as it is currently, he has incurred $2,550 so far, or that works out to $85 an hour in counseling fees.
Okay.
And so, you know, again, if the city were able to provide him with an outstanding recommendation, clear his record, provide money for these sessions, and give him front pay until he's able to land a job that pays at least as much as what he was making in his detective position,
Okay.
he would be amenable to that without getting his job back necessarily.
Okay, alright, so we definitely have a couple options. You know, definitely we're interested in making you whole again on those payments for the counseling sessions, as well as figuring out, clearing your client's name in the public's eye, and then reinstatement and or future pay for comparable position. So knowing that that's kind of, you know, something we want to work with, I've talked to the chief. He has no problem reinstating your client to the force in his, you know, older position, if that's something you guys want to pursue. We could definitely write a letter of recommendation saying we would like a full reinstatement of former Detective Daye's spot as a detective on the force. So it just basically comes down to if you guys want to stay with us or not, you know?
I think my client definitely would, you know, be willing to take his job back. But I think maybe making a letter that is more general, talking about his wonderful, you know, job qualities and how he's been more as an employee over the past 10 years and, you know, just the skills that he's built up, that this is an aberration for him. And money for the sessions, I think he would be fine with that.
Okay. Alright, so figure out that.
But yes, you know, he would be amenable to having his job back.
He's saying our city.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
His job back as a detective. Just wanted to clarify that, not as a patrol officer.
Okay. Now he's been, okay, so we're thinking, you know, as we sit right now, paying $2,550 for the counseling sessions, a reinstatement letter to the chief of police, saying that we recommend and that he should get his job back as the detective capacity. And I realize we also would like, in exchange as well, a letter from you guys to Mr. Allen Smith.
Yeah.
And Joey Allen Smith.
Joey Allen Smith, correct.
Just saying that, you know, sorry for the way that things happened and, you know, the procedures were flawed from me and my assistant, and that the department is going to take care of it and that the city's liable, et cetera, and stuff like that. So if you guys would concede that, we have no problem following through with a recommendation for full reinstatement for the Rexford Police Department, as well as the $2,550 for it, for the counseling.
That is more than amiable to us, so.
Okay, all right, well, we will, we will wait for your letter to Mr. Joey Allen Smith. I'll get a check from the city
Mhm.
for $2,550 made payable to you and your client, and a reinstatement letter to deliver. Would you like us to deliver the letter, or do you want?
Sure, I mean, that would be fine.
Okay.
I just, again, want to clarify with the letter, although, yes, it is reinstating his job back, I want it to be, you know, broad enough to speak of his qualities as an employee
Okay.
in general.
So the value of his past 10 years of service.
The value of his past 10 years of service to the force, you know, and just to clear his record of these discrepancies.
That's great.
You know, should, let's say hypothetically, future employment opportunities come his way, he doesn't want to be deterred
something
by.
bad. Right. That's fairly smart. Okay, so letter from you guys to Mr. Joey Allen Smith. From us, a check for the counseling sessions, and then a letter of reinstatement to the chief, making him detective, and then we will also include multiple clauses in there showing how the city has valued your client's past 10 years of service to us, and that he is not in any bad light as far as we're concerned with everything that's going on.
I also wanted to ask about back pay while we're on the subject. Is that something that would be considered?
We're under the position that, you know, something needed to happen, whether or not Miss Payton was not punished. You know, something did happen here that caused fault. That's something that we're kind of closed on. I think it's been only a couple weeks since this has occurred. But yeah, we're kind of closed on that. But as far as a full reinstatement from patrol officer
To
back
detective.
back to his supervisory position as a detective, we definitely can do that.
Okay.
So, all right.
We can live with that.
That sounds good.
All right.
All right. Well,
Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure meeting with you.
Rexford.
All right.
So, do we critique now?
Oh, yes.
I'll go first.
That's right.
You did excellent. You were very
Thanks.
professional.
Thank you.
Like a real lawyer negotiating with the city. Got all your. I mean, yeah, everything was great. Yeah, no complaints.
Oh, thank you. I think you were really good too. Like your demeanor was very, like, how do you say, conversational, but yet like you made me feel comfortable, and still sticking to what your client would want.
Right.
I felt your demands were. I mean, like it was really reasonable. It was just an apology. I mean.
Yeah.
You could probably maybe been a little bit harder with like what, you know, just the apology is like really simple.
Yeah.
But it was, I mean, that was great. I think you had a very professional tone as well, and yeah, you did good overall.